More now on that breaking news. The United States has launched an attack in Syria. Let's check in with Lucas Tomlinson. He's traveling with the president in West Palm Beach right now. Lucas.
Good afternoon, John. Officials say this is payback for the killing of those 2 Iowa National Guard soldiers and their American interpreter last month in Syria. If you recall, there was a first wave of airstrikes against the Islamic State in Syria on December 19th. That night, F-15E Strike Eagles were used, A-10 Warthogs, as well as Army Apache helicopter gunships. We await confirmation on what was used this time, but it's safe to say, John, those assets remain in the region. There's always a squadron of F-15 Strike Eagles. The last time the strikes were launched from Jordan remains to be seen if the Jordanians assisted this time. But it all comes as the United States is working closer with Syria's government to root out and destroy the remnants of ISIS. And that December 19th strike, there were 70 targets. We'll have to see the readout of the strikes that are taking place right now, we're told. Those bombs have been dropped, and some of those aircraft are returning to base, John. We have not heard from President Trump today. It's notable, though, John, the schedule for President Trump is pretty light. He had a dentist appointment this morning. He did not go to his golf club to stick a tee in the ground, so perhaps he is monitoring the situation as we speak in Syria, John.
What about those December 19th strikes? Do we know the assessment, the after-battle assessment of what happened there?
Nothing was published, John, but the U.S. Central Command responsible for all American forces in the Middle East said 70 targets were struck throughout central Syria. If you recall, after the killing of the 2 Iowa National Guard soldiers, that was during a key leader engagement in Palmyra in central Syria by what CENTCOM called a lone ISIS gunman was responsible. He had been serving in the Syrian security forces. He was delinquent, we were told. He was suspected of having ties for ISIS and was in the process of getting kicked out of the Syrian military. And President Trump has been working with Syria's new president, trying to strengthen ties in the region to kick ISIS out, also to bring Syrian Kurdish forces together with the Syrian forces in Syria. But this strike today, I'm told, is a continuation, the payback, the vengeance, if you will, John, after the killing of those 2 Iowa National Guard soldiers and their American interpreter.
And when Hafez al-Assad was still running Syria, the Russians had a significant presence there. And I know U.S. airstrikes had to be somewhat wary of not getting too close to the Russian zone of influence. But the Russians are gone now, right?
Not completely, John. They still operate a base in Syria. There are still some remnants of the Russians, but nothing like what they had before. And you're right. There was a time when the U.S. military launched strikes in Syria. There was a deconfliction mechanism. Sometimes it was just an unclassified mobile phone and a Gmail account, I was told at the time. But if you recall, when the Delta Force launched one of its last major operations to kill the ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in northwest Syria, they had to fly near some Russian forces, and there was some deconfliction on that operation, telling the Russians this fight is not against you, it is against the leader of ISIS.
Yeah, an iPhone and a Gmail account. So when do we expect to hear the results of what happened today? Has the Pentagon said anything, Lucas?
Not officially, John. Of course, we're standing by. If past this prologue, we're expecting some kind of post from President Trump announcing the strike that has taken place. And most of our viewers are hoping a very successful one in Syria. I have to wait until all the aircraft are safely returned and accounted for, of course, John.
We will be watching Truth Social for the president's post, that's for sure. Lucas Tomlinson, traveling with the president from West Palm Beach. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.